Newzroom is launching a series of conversations with provincial police commissioners to really take stock of crime and their plans to deal with it in their respective provinces. So this morning we'll kick off with the Western Cape and Police Commissioner Lieutenant General Thembisile Patekile. The province we know is hobbled by murder, the rate of which has increased by 8.6% relative to the corresponding period in the previous year. Attempted murder is up by a significant amount, as well as contact crimes. Lieutenant General Patekile, good morning to you. Welcome to the program. I know you've got a busy day, so thank you very much for your time. And maybe as an opening, just high-level policing priorities for the province for the period ahead.
Good morning to you, Iman, and the viewers. Thank you for the opportunity that you afforded us this morning. Yes, indeed, there has been a significant increase on our conduct crimes in particular. What we're looking at, what are the causes of these conduct crimes, the crime generators? Then on top would be the gang violence, drugs, taxi violence, gender-based violence, and the abuse of liquor and drugs. These are the generating. In fact, most of all of these things in common is the use of illegal firearms as a weapon of choice in the Western Cape. The proliferation of firearms in the Western Cape has had a big impact on our crimes, where an average of 30 illegal firearms are retrieved from the communities on a weekly basis. I must just say to you, since the beginning of the Operation Chanela in May last year up to now, more than 3,100 firearms were recovered from the streets, and more than 250,000 people were arrested in the Western Cape for serious crimes. But beside all that, there's still some crimes, stubborn crimes that are continuing.
Yeah.
For example, causes of those things, for example, is in the city of Cape Town, which derives many of our serious crime and conduct crimes, and which contributes about 65% of our crimes. We have identified the stations that are actually contributing, that was 30 stations contributing 45% of our murders and attempted murders. Now, in all those stations, you will have that extortion as one of the problems, and the gang violence, the taxi violence, and GBVs in the areas. Now, you do not find this in any other areas than the Cape Flats. When I'm talking about Cape Flats, would be the formerly known colored areas and African townships like Kaili Town, Yanga, etc. Yeah. Now, you will find that in those areas, most importantly, also the contributing factors are the environmental designs, the rapid increase of the informal settlements, where you are unable to go during the night and patrol because it's happening mostly when it is dark.
Yeah.
And now that is also now raining, those areas are flooding, you are unable to go to them.
Lieutenant General, if I may, because you've touched on a couple of marquee issues, and of course, in the time allowed, we can only focus on a few. So let's go into the heart of some of the biggest problems which you've already identified in terms of gangs, extortion, and the proliferation of illegal firearms. Just a quick question before I go directly to gangsterism. When you talk about 250,000 people being arrested, 3,000 plus firearms recovered, are you able to create some trends in terms of the source of these firearms? Where are they coming from?
Well, most of the firearms, remember that firearm before it becomes illegal, it was once owned by a person legally. I may just say to you the following. The firearms that have been robbed from other people, they are in that category. The firearms, the deceased estates firearms that people didn't apply for it when a person died, those firearms are in those. The firearms that are lost by entities, even including police for that matter, they are forming in that category. Also, what we've seen now the homemade firearms that are also in that space. We've now seen that the blank guns and toy guns that are now modified into real guns, they are also in that space. But we have also discovered that firearms from other countries that are also coming into the space that we found in our areas. Those are part of the issues that we are dealing with on a daily basis.
So again,
then
this category and this breakdown is so disturbing, Lieutenant General. I'm sure there's a whole conversation just around that, and perhaps in future we can set up these sort of really targeted conversations around the different trends in what's contributing to crime. I want to go quickly to the issue of gangs. The police minister, former police minister Patekile, in February released South Africa's third quarter crime stats, covered October the previous year to December 2023, saying it was concerning that of the 268 gang-related murders, 250 of those murders were reported in the Western Cape. So an outright majority of gang murders happening in the province. I want to go to the specific issue around the alleged collusion between low-ranking and higher-ranking officers of the SAPS and gang members. So I'm thinking about this 2022 Western Cape High Court judgment. This is the case, and I know that you're well au fait with it, involving the 28s and so on, about gang members that had apparently infiltrated top management structures of the SAPS in the province. And it goes on and on. If you want, I can go into a bit more detail. But what I really want to ask you is, how would you describe this influence that was referenced in that, and how have you actively been dealing with rooting it out?
Look, if I were to answer you on the preliminary judgment, that was based on the 2019 case. This was in a bail application for that matter. But we have arrested some of our members who are currently in court as we speak, with the most high flyers, the name of Modak, and other high flyers like Stanfield that are in there. You've got also in the townships on Bara, Nyaraha. And the taxi industry go to Makalala, they are also there in court cases are going on in court now. But in many of those, there are policemen that we are arrested with, and some policemen that we dismiss. Many of those policemen that we found, we've been dismissed. But not every policeman is colliding with gangs. The majority of the policemen out there, they are doing a sterling job. But the ones that we do find, we deal with them, where criminally and also internally, where we dismiss some of them, in as far as our internal processes are concerned.
Can you give us some numbers, Lieutenant General? I mean, it is concerning because when you refer to that judgment, the 28th gang has access to the table where the provincial commissioner sits with his senior managers, leads them in the study of crime, developing crime prevention strategies. In other words, this infiltration is quite serious, and it goes right to the heart of the work that you and others are trying to do in eradicating the issue and the scourge of gang violence. So just maybe if you can, give us a bit more detail on just how involved these officers have been. How many are we talking about that you say have now been rooted out, even though the work continues?
As I was saying, this judgment is based on a case of 2019. That bail application was in 2019. It only was released. We have had investigations internal that we've put in looking at these matters. But where we found some, we've dealt with them. But as to say in the table where I am sitting, because remember the person that was giving that was a low-ranking officer who would never been exposed to what we do in the table where I'm sitting. But at that time, I will not be talking about the people that are not here now since 2020 that have not been in the police. I took over here in 2021. We haven't seen that, but we discovered some of the members that we have arrested, we've dismissed, and we continue doing so. and with the assistance of the community in this province, that we get some information about many of our members and we deal with them. Our anti-corruption unit is working day and night dealing with that, and where we found those members that are corruptly involved with gangs, we deal with them.
There is an anti-gang unit, Lieutenant General Patekile. Who's leading it, and what's been the progress since March?
Look, we had appointed a brigadier, but subsequent to that, he then was taken. He got some other greener pastures elsewhere. We advertised the post for a brigadier. We hope fully to fill it before the beginning of August to continue with that. What we've also done is to beef up the anti-gang unit, the AGU, from where it was to, we added more 100 members. Beside that, the National Commissioner has also given us additional deployments from the other provinces, almost about 100 members that are in the space in the gang stations, assisting us in policing and combating gang violence in the areas.
I want to go to the, again, this other worrying problem you're up against, and this is extortion. The Global Initiative Against Transnational Organized Crime, this is GTOC, has identified 4 main extortion economies in the Western Cape. So you've got one of which you mentioned at the start of our interview, the CBD nighttime extortion economy. So we're talking amongst others, restaurants and coffee shops. You've got the Cape Town construction mafia, which is targeting infrastructure projects and the construction sector in the province, the transport extortion economy, and this is apparently existed within the minibus taxi industry in Cape Town, but it's also expanded now to include buses, private transport, and even private vehicles. The township enterprise extortion economy, formal and informal businesses and individuals operating particularly in the Cape Flats and including Khayelitsha, Gugulethu and Nyanga, and also targeting municipal workers and contractors. And it just goes on and on. So there's this massive effect and corrosive chokehold on families and people trying to run their own businesses. What is your approach to this?
Well, one, we have approached this in an organized manner, using an organized poker act, where we have some of the groups that have been arrested, where you can if you're listening at the Stanfield bail application that's happening now in court, where the construction mafia has come to fore, and many other groupings that we are hopeful to, we have identified many that we're working on to ensure that we are going to be taking them down soon, and some will take longer. But what we are also doing on the community and active citizenry is the collaboration between ourselves, the City of Cape Town, the community like CPFs, neighborhood watches, youth crime prevention, spiritual crime prevention, and many more stakeholders that are fighting this scourge of violence. But the difficulty is people are reluctant to report these cases. We have put in a toll-free number that must be used, which is being used often, and we've created many cases because people are reporting. But we would want more, as you mentioned, that in many areas. For example, in the taxi industry, in the transport industry, we can say we got one that's the high flyer that is in court right now, Makalala, and we're hoping that there will also be more that will be joining as we continue with our investigation. So is in all these high flyers we add, as we continue, we're adding more arrests in many of them. And we're hoping that this collaboration and the multi-dimensional stakeholders approach will assist us. We got an extortion forum that is composed of all government departments within the Western Cape, and that is meeting monthly to look at the progress and what are the challenges. Now, what is very important for us is to know, we don't want to know your name, but just give us the information in this number, and then we have a way of following these incidents. In many cases, we've achieved, And if it was not for that, we wouldn't achieve that. I wonder if I could read the number. It's 0800 314444, 0800 314444. That number is assisting us in many ways, but a giant effort is needed. The whole of society approach as well of government approach is very important.
I think
what I want us to ask is, there is a strategy called integrated violence and crime and violence prevention strategy, which requires all other stakeholders to take part in this matter. It's got 6 pillars. One of those, the first one is, among those, is the early intervention, because we've seen that the people that we're arresting are very young. And when you look at their education qualifications, you see that they dropped out of school, many of them. So if we collaborate with all other departments and other stakeholders to ensure that the youth that is idling is redirected, so that the recruiting ground for the criminals and gangs is eliminated, then we'll achieve 1 point as a way forward.
Yeah, I think the approach that you're saying about an all-of-society approach, including every stakeholder, is probably one of the better opportunities we have to get everybody involved and to roll back a crime. The number I think we've put up on our screen, thank you very much to Lieutenant General for sharing that number. That's where you can go if you want to, tip off police in a safe way. I think, Lieutenant General Patekile, one of the things we have to see is, the person who's spearheading policing, someone like yourself, someone who is a leader. People take their cue from the stance and the approach of the leader, and in this case, it is you. What is your message to these syndicates, to all of these players who've been holding our communities ransomed, where children are just dying in the street, in the crossfire? We see communities that are completely fearful. We even see law enforcement that in some ways, or even, within the bench, might be cowed by the threat and the possibility of violence in their lives for doing their jobs. What stance are you taking this morning from a position of strength to say this far and no further, things are going to change when it comes to crime and crime prevention and the dealing with crime in the province of the Western Cape?
By the message to the criminals, whoever is involved in the criminal, we're going to get you. Don't do crime. Those who report crime to the police, and those who are looking for, it's best that you bring yourself to us, because we're going to find you. And we are not going to stop. We will continue with all our efforts to ensure that we stamp the authority of the state. We bring safety in the Western Cape, and that we are determined to do with all might we have to ensure that everybody is safe in the Western Cape.
Lieutenant General Patekile, thank you very much for your time this morning. We appreciate it. We'll certainly continue our conversation with you in dealing with the issue of crime in our communities. And that is the Western Cape Provincial Commissioner, Lieutenant General Patekile.